Welcome. Today we'll be covering the 1040 software. When you log into the program, the first screen you come to is the work in progress summary screen. At the top of the screen, you'll notice there's three tabs: your 1040 returns tab, business return tab, only activated if purchased, and the website tab. Below that, you'll have your menu bar. These are items in which you'll do during setup of the software, as well as running reports. Below that, you'll have your icon toolbar. The icon toolbar breaks out the functions that you click on most often, so we put them right there in front of you for easy access. Below that, you have your info bar. The information bar gives you a lot of good information. The user ID, which is your office number, the tax year, and the version of the software you're currently running, as well as the username that you're logged in as. When you call in to tech support, one of the first things that they will ask you is what user ID you're calling in from. And if you're having any problems with your software, the first thing they'll ask is what version you're running. We put these right in front of you so you don't have to search for that information. Now, the work in progress summary screen below has 6 different sections, and we will look at each one of these sections individually. Tax return section is going to show you how many returns has been started in this installation of the program. To see those returns, you simply place your mouse over the select a return and you'll notice it becomes a hand. That lets you know that you can click on that link. So once I click on select a return, it will take me to the return screen page. And by default, we do not automatically display all returns. You could have hundreds of returns on here, and we want to give you the ability to search for those returns first. You'll notice that the search criteria defaults to last name or social security number. If you want to select different options, you can click on the drop-down list and you can actually search by the criteria you wish to search for. For this one, we're going to leave it to last name or social security number. Next, you can actually search on partial information. So, for example, if I wanted to find all my tax returns that started with the social security number 411, I simply type in 411 and click go, and it will display all the tax returns that have 411 as the start of the social security number. You also can search partial information on last name. For example, if I wanted to see all my tax returns that started with SM because I was looking for Smith, I simply type in SM, click go, and it will display all tax returns that start with the last name SM. And last, if you want to display all tax returns, simply leave that field blank and click go. Once you do that, it will display all tax returns started on this system. Now, looking at the screen, you'll notice that it looks a lot like Excel. And with that, you have some of the functionality that Excel brings to you. You can sort on each column by simply clicking on it. Once you click one time, it will sort it ascending. A second time will sort it descending. Looking through these tabs, you'll notice that this screen brings back a lot of information for these tax returns. With that said, we also give you the ability to select what columns you wish to see here. To configure this screen to your liking, simply click on the Configure icon in the icon toolbar. It will bring up a list and show all columns that are selected. To take a column away, simply remove the check mark beside the column you wish to take away. Once you do so and you click on OK, click Go again, you'll notice that it takes those columns away for you. You can always go back to your Configure button and reset it, and it will automatically put back all the columns for you. Lastly, you can also drag and drop these columns and have them show in the order in which you would like to see them. For example, if I wanted the refund amount to show directly behind the taxpayer's name, I simply click with my mouse, hold that mouse key down, drag the column to the location I want it to be, and then release my mouse and it will drop the column to that location. Now your first keyboard shortcut of the day is going to be F2. F2 will take you back to your work in progress screen. You'll notice too that there is a WIP button, and if you hover over it, it lets you know F2 will take you back to that work in progress screen. Next, you have your status summary list. And what this does for you is once you start the process of electronically filing tax returns, during that life cycle of an e-file, it's going to be in various different stages, different statuses. What this status summary list does for you is it looks at every tax return on this install and it puts it into the status summary list that each return is in. So once I click status summary list, it will display all the statuses of all your tax returns. So here we can see we have 13 returns that have been accepted by the IRS. We have one that has a check print ready, and we have one that's also rejected by the IRS. So it shows you exactly what state each one of your returns are in. Now also, these are links as well. So if I want to see what returns I have that have a check print ready, I simply double click on check ready to print and it will take me and list all returns that has a check ready to be printed. Once again, to escape this screen, you can simply click on WIP or F2 will take you back to your work in progress summary screen. Below that, you have your management dashboard link. This just gives you access to a series of reports. Training returns. This gives you the ability to have your preparers create training returns when they're getting ready for season. And what it does is it actually keeps those training returns separate from any live returns created on the system. You also have the ability to delete all training returns with one click of a button. Below that, you also have the mobile application retrieval utility. If you're using the mobile application, people can actually submit return information to you through their cell phone. This is where you would go to retrieve that information. The next section is the printing queue. And in the printing queue, you have the ability to print your checks if you're printing through the software. You have your tax returns section. This is something that's been around for a long time. Back when I first started in the industry over 20 years ago, every single thing had to be printed. With the software now, we actually give you the ability to go completely paperless. But what this tax return section used to do for them is what they could do is they could have it set up in their system for their tax returns to send to this queue. What that would give them the ability to do is while the taxpayers are in the office, they would only print the taxpayer's copy out. Then at the end of the day, they could come here, click on these tax returns, and print out all their copies that needed to be filed away and kept for storage. Below that, you also have performas. These are any returns that you have done performa on, brought forward from last year, and prints out information that you could give to the taxpayer to say, this is the income you had last year. Make sure you bring all these documents with you this year. Below that, you have your federal acknowledgement letters and state acknowledgement letters. Sometimes you may have a client come back and say, I need my federal acknowledgement letter, be it that they're purchasing a house or completing student loan information. You can simply click on these and print out the acknowledgement letter for the customer who needs it. Below that, you have your other items. This is kind of like your housekeeping area. This is where updates will go. As you guys do what you guys do and send electronic returns, anytime that you communicate with Central Site, we are going to check the version that you're currently running. If we're at a different version, we will send you those updates. This is where those updates will land. Simply click on it and you would click apply all and your updates would be installed. Below that, you have your secure email. This is information sent directly to your office. Below that, you have bulletins. And bulletins is something that we send out to every customer. This is going to be things like something going on in the industry. The IRS maybe is delayed on processing acknowledgments. A bank is having problems. Things like that. Things that's going to generate you guys have to pick up the phone and call into support. Anything that we can get out to you that's going to be able to keep you from having to call is going to be beneficial. So those come out in the form of a bulletin. Once I click on the bulletins here, you can see that it'll display all the different bulletins that you've received. To view one of them, you simply double click and select it and it'll open and give you complete information. Now I know what a lot of offices do is they will actually print out these bulletins and put it on a bulletin board and make their employees check it first thing in the morning so they stay aware of what's going on around them as well. Today's appointments. This appointment scheduler works with Outlook. So if you're wanting to schedule appointments in the software, if you have Outlook as your email provider, those would actually export to your calendar in Outlook. Next, you have the backup returns. And this is extremely important that you make sure that you have a backup of all tax returns. In the event of a fire, a flood, a robbery, if you have a complete backup of your returns, you can be back up and running in no time. All you would have to do is re-download the software, put in your backup, restore them, and every single return that you had is there. So make sure that backing up returns is a part of each and every day in your office. Next, you have the transmit queue. And you'll see that we're going to start on this work in progress screen and we will finish on this work in progress screen. So we are going to move past this transmit queue for now, because after we complete a tax return, we'll actually come back here and transmit. Exceptions and rejects are the next area that we'll come to. Now, as you guys are doing what you do as preparers and electronically filing returns, each time you communicate, you will pick up acknowledgments, rejects, software updates. So if you have a reject, we place it here right in front of you. This is very important that you're staying on top of any rejected returns. Think of it as a blockage in a pipeline. If a return is rejected, you're not getting paid and your customer is not getting their money. So in order to stay on top of these, we put them right here in front of you. To view the rejected returns, you simply click on Fed Rejects. Once you do so, it will display all tax returns that are in a rejected status. To see why a particular tax return is rejected, you simply open up that tax return by double clicking on it. Now, once you double click on it, when it takes you into the return, it takes you directly to a box that tells you verbatim the IRS information as to why they rejected the tax return. You can even click on the details button and it will give you a description. Now we are in demo software and this is a made up reject. So what's going to happen is if I double click on this, it will actually take me to the exact field that's causing the reject. Now I can think of one reject right off that I know several preparers get every year. And that's going to be the Social Security number of a dependent, maybe not matching what the Social Security Administration has on file. Maybe you've even keyed in the Social Security number incorrectly. If that is the case, if you have 3 or 4 dependents on a return, once you click that link to the reject, it will take you to the exact Social Security number of the dependent that's causing the issue. If you check the Social Security information and everything that you shows that you have the correct information, normally your next process would be to have to reach out to the taxpayer. Now in the software, we give you the ability to send text messaging through the software. Most of the time, if you try to reach a customer, you're going to get an answering machine or no answer at all. What the text messaging gives you the ability to do is to put the ball back in the customer's court. So if you need to get information out to them while you're in the return, you can click on Send Text. Once you do so, you can enter in the text message that you need to get to the taxpayer. For example, we can say, this tax return is currently rejected. Please reach me at, give your telephone number, information, click on OK, and it will send that message to the taxpayer. Now, we all know that once the taxpayer gets that message, they're going to return the call to you as quickly as possible because they want their money as well as you want yours. This gives you the ability to move on to your next task at hand and lets you go on and wait for the taxpayer to call you back. Again, to get back to my work in progress screen, I simply click on the WIP button or F2. Below the Fed rejects, you have your state refused and rejects. Again, this is going to be if a state refuses or rejects your return. You would do the same process for those as you would for federal rejects. Fed refused, however, is something that we at the central site refuse. It's not an IRS refusal. Say, for example, that you've accidentally tried to send a return that has already been sent through our system. If we receive a duplicate Social Security number, we will send you a Fed refused alert. Once you click on that alert, it'll show you the tax return that's currently being refused by Central Site. To see exactly why that return was refused, if you double click it, once it first opens, it will take you into that box, then it'll tell you exactly why we refused this return. For example, this return states that this Social Security number was filed by another user ID. So that means that the taxpayer has went somewhere else to have their tax return processed before they come to you. A phone call to our technical support department can help you figure out what's going on with the tax return. I'm going to close out of the return, and again, to get back to the work in progress screen, WIP button or F2. Now, I'm going to say that quite often during this training class. The reason being is that the more you hear it, the more likely you are to remember. Below that, you have your Fed or state alerts. That's any kind of alerts that the Fed or state institutions want to get out to you. Bank rejected, again, just like federal rejects, if a bank has rejected your return, it will populate here, and you follow the same process to correct any bank rejects. Below that, new in the software last year, we gave you the ability to capture signatures remotely. These two options here will show you any returns that are waiting the signatures to come in or that you've received signatures on. To see the returns you're waiting for a signature for, you simply select Pending Remote Signatures, and it will display the tax returns that are currently waiting on the taxpayer signatures for. WIP will take you back to your work in progress screen. Looking at all these sections of the work in progress screen, it's very important that every office knows how many tax returns they've started. They need to get any of their printing done. They need to keep their software updated, stay on top of things going on in the industry, as well as backing up all tax returns. They need to transmit. They need to make sure that they're keeping on top of transmissions. They need to work those rejects. All of these are important to every office out there. Where every office could be different, however, is by what reports they use every day. Quick Reports gives you the ability to add the reports that you run most often and have them land here on your work in progress summary screen. To add a quick report, simply click on Utility and Quick Report List. It will show you the available reports. These will be any reports that come with the program or any report that you have created and saved in your tax software. To add a report, you simply select the report from the available reports list, click Add, and it will move it to your work in progress quick reports. Once you click on OK, it will then add that report to your list. Quick Reports also gives you the ability to send mass text. What that does is it gives you the ability to reach out to multiple customers with one communication. Let's say, for example, your office hours are changing. To get that out to all of your customers, you could have a customer list or client list here on your Quick Reports list. Once you click on that, it will display all tax return customers that you have completed. To send them all a text message with one communication session, you simply click on Send Text. Type in your new hours, click on OK, and with one click of a button, you have reached out to all 20 taxpayers with one communication session. Last time you'll hear me say this. To return back to your work in progress screen, you can click on the WIP button here at the top of your screen in your icon toolbar, or you can click F2 on your keypad and it will take you back to your work in progress screen. So to summarize the work in progress summary screen, this is very important in helping you run your business on a daily basis. Every single tax software out there can complete a tax return, but it's the software who can help you efficiently and effectively run your business that should come out on top. And we do a really good job of giving you the tools that you need to run your business efficiently. Next, let's start a tax return. There's a couple of different options for you to use when it comes to starting returns in the program. One, you can actually click on the Add New Return icon, and it'll take you to your Add New Return screen. Or if you're a keyboard person, you can click Alt-A, and it will take you to your Add New Return screen as well. Now, once here, you'll want to enter in the Social Security number and confirm it for accuracy. We also utilize technology to help speed up the process of completing tax returns. With that said, we utilize a scanner feature. If the W-2 you have has the barcode on it, you can start the tax return using this barcode. Simply scan the barcode with your scanner. With one click of a button, it puts in the Social Security number and confirms it for accuracy for you. Once we click on OK, it's going to take as much information from the W-2 and go ahead and place it into the tax return. As you can see, the taxpayer's names there, their Social Security numbers there, as well as the address. Before we can navigate away from our client data sheet, you must give it a filing status. For this return, we're going to say that they are head of household, so that's going to be filing status 4. Now, if we look over in our attached forms list, you'll see that we already have a W-2. Once you go to that W-2, you'll notice that it's completely filled out. So with one click of a button, your tax return was started and the W-2 was imported completely. You will need to verify just to make sure that the information is correct. Once the information is verified, at the bottom you have an X if Scan W-2 has been verified. Simply place an X in the field when completed. Now let's return back to our client data sheet. To do so, simply double-click Client Data in the attached forms list. Back to the client data, let's look at the color-coded entries. There's two different types of entries here. The blue entries are direct entries. The gray entries are calculated entries. An easy way to remember these is with a rhyme. Blue is you. Gray, stay away. So if we go here to date of birth field, we can put in the date of birth. And once you hit enter or tab, you'll notice that the gray field beside it automatically calculates the age. Now looking at DOB, if you did not know what DOB was, down below you have an active window. This active window is going to let you know what a field is looking for. So another easy way to remember this is if you don't know, look below. This field will always tell you what a field's wanting. The next field that you'll come to is going to be occupations. Occupations now gives you a different option in your active window. You'll notice that there is a choices button that you can now click on. Whenever you see choices, it lets you know that there is a database associated to that field. Databases are in the program to help save keystrokes so you can quickly complete the tax return. There are two different types of databases in the program. The first type is non-dynamic. Non-dynamic simply means that we will not remember data if you just type it in here and move on. Occupations is a non-dynamic database. So that means that you would need to add occupations to this database. To do so, you would go up and click on Database, Occupations. Once here, you would need to give it a 3-digit sequence number. For this example, I'm going to say 003. Once I click Add, it's going to ask what the name of the occupation is that you're entering. For this example, we're going to say Senior Trainer and click Save. Once we go to Close, to access our choices for our database occupations, you can do that two ways. You could either click on choices down below, or if you're a keyboard person, the shortcut key is going to be F3. Once you access the database, you simply select the occupation and click on OK, and it will insert it into the field for you. Now you just want to complete your client data worksheet. Home phone numbers, work phone numbers, cell phone numbers. If you want to utilize the text messaging, you must provide a cell phone number in order for the program to be able to send text messages. Email addresses. This is a good way to advertise. Think about it. Most people who move or change telephone numbers, the email address normally stays the same. So you should be able to get in touch with clients whether they've moved or changed their telephone number with an email address. So always make sure to capture an email address. Next is going to be text message. If you look below, it will tell you exactly what that field is looking for. If your customer will agree to receive text messages, you will need to place an X in this field. Next, you'll be at the cell phone carrier. You need to know who they use. There is also a database associated to this field. So to access it, again, F3 will bring you to that database for you to select the appropriate cell phone carrier. Once you select the appropriate, you click on OK. It then will put the carrier in as well as the domain. Occasionally, you may run into a provider that's not in this list. Please reach out to your technical support department and we'll get it added and then sent back out in an update to the program. Filing status next. If you're not familiar with the numbered filing statuses, again, look below. This active window will tell you exactly what this field will take. We're saying for this example that they're filing a head of household tax return. So they're filing status 4. Now the program's intuitive enough to know what needs to come next. With this being a head of household return, that means that there will not be a spouse. So once I hit enter or tab, you'll notice that it completely bypasses the spouses section. Now you're at the address field. The address is already populated from the scanning of the W-2 to start the tax return. But you'll notice when tabbing through these fields that it will bypass the city and state. This is by design as well because we utilize the zip code database. Once you enter in the zip code, the state and city will automatically populate. Below that, you have your military information. If they were on an APO, a DPO, or FPO military base. If they were in a combat zone, you would need to put the combat zone that they were deployed to as well the date of deployment. Again, you'll have choices available to you for the active choices for the combat zone that they were in. The next section is going to be banking information. This is another field that we will remember. This is a dynamic database. As you do what you do in complete returns and you're entering in this banking information, we'll remember it for the next time. In your area, people who open accounts at, say, a SunTrust bank, they're all going to have the same routing number if started in your area. So why not utilize that and save you keystrokes and promote accuracy when completing this information? To access the Choices button, again, you can click on Choices or hit F3, and it'll display the choices you have available to you. Select the appropriate bank and routing number and click on OK, and it will put it in for you. The next piece of information you need to know is their account number. Once you enter in the account number and hit enter, the program is going to take away the account number and bring up the double entry validation box. It wants you to re-enter that data. It takes the old data away because we don't want you to look at that data to rekey it. We want to make sure you're using the original document to capture this information. So again, you'll want to re-enter the account number. Once you click on OK or hit enter, if that account number matches, it will then put it into the program. Lastly, you just need to specify whether this is for a checking account or a savings account. For this example, we're going to say checking account. The next section is going to be referral type. The referral type can do multiple things for you. One, it can help you track marketing. If you're spending money on marketing, you can make this a required field for your tax preparers to have to put how they heard from you. Also, if you're paying out referral fees, you can actually use this field to mark as referral and run reports to find out who you need to pay what referral fees to. For this example, we're going to show a referral. To access the choices, simply click on Choices or F3. For this example, we're going to use referral. So select the referral and click on OK. Now in the description field, you want to put the name of the person who's referred this customer to you. For this example, we're going to say Mike Customer. Now, once we complete this return and we close out, from the reports section of your work in progress screen, you could run the client referral report and find out who you need to pay fees to. Also, you can tell customers all day long that you'll pay referral fees, but a lot of times when they walk out the door, they completely forget. We also give you the ability to print out coupons. To access the referral coupon, you would go up to the word print and come down to referral coupons. What this will do for you is it will print out 3 coupons per page, and it'll bring in your office's information, the name of the person doing the referring, and it'll print 3 coupons per sheet of paper. So even if you just print 1 sheet of paper, they can get this to 3 of their friends. Then those friends come in, hand you their referral sheet, and you know who you need to give credit for. The next section is going to be insurance information. Consult a Doctor Plus was a program that we offered in years past. It's simply a teledoc feature. It's not considered insurance. But if your customer wished to offer that, they would simply put in a yes or no. Below that, this is the information you need to gather for the Affordable Care Act. You'll simply put how the customer has insurance. Was it through an employer? Was it government issued Medicare or Medicaid? Or did they purchase it from a marketplace? Select the appropriate. For this example, we're going to say it was through an employer. The last section on your client data are dependents. The program will really help when it comes to completing information for dependents. In this example, we're going to add 2 dependents. We're going to add a little dependent. So I'm going to type in little. When we get to the last name, if it's the same as the taxpayer, once you type in that first initial, if it matches, you'll see that it kind of grays in the last name. If it's correct, all you have to do is enter or tab, and it'll insert the information for you. Once you enter the birth date, the age will automatically calculate. This will help you determine what credits this child will qualify for. Next, you'll enter in the Social Security number. Relationship is the next field. We also provide a database for that. If you hit F3, it will access your choices menu. You simply select the appropriate relationship. For this example, we're going to say it's the daughter. Then we come to Mo. Again, if you do not know what a field is looking for, look below. It's looking for the number of months the dependent lived with the taxpayer. For this example, we're going to say 12. Once I hit enter, you'll notice the program automatically made some assumptions for you based on the date of birth, the valid Social Security number, and relationship, as well as how many months they lived in the home. Based on this information, it says that the code for the dependent code is 1. If you click on choices, you can see the other options available to you. This one states that the dependent lived with the taxpayer. For this example, we are going to leave it to that. These next codes have to do with earned income credit. Right now, based on the dependent's age, Social Security number, and relationship, right now the program states the child is eligible to receive the earned income credit. The next field is the child tax credit. Based on the age of the dependent, right now, they do qualify for the child tax credit, and it's automatically placed the X there for you. Dependent care is the next field. If the taxpayer has paid dependent care for this child, you would need to place an X in the field. Once you place the X and you hit enter, I want you to notice that it does not automatically load your 2441 form. This is by design. The way we keep our program so fast is we don't automatically add forms or calculations on enter. We will, however, automatically load the form when you navigate away to a different form in the return, or if you click the refresh button. And now you can see that our child care credit form, the 2441, is now in our tax return. The last box here has to do with the grocery credit for the state of Idaho. If they are getting the grocery credit, you would simply put in the number of months the child lived with the taxpayer in those states. You can also access the worksheets from here to be able to complete this information as well. So that is a dependent underneath the age of 18. Now, let's add an older dependent, one that's over the age of 19 or 18, and there may be a student in college. So for this example, we're going to enter in a bigger dependent. Again, if the last name is the same, once you type in the first initial, it'll automatically gray in. If you hit tab, it will put it in for you. And this time, we're going to put in a date of birth and make the dependent 21 years old. But this dependent is a full-time student. They are the son. So you'll notice another way of accessing relationships is if I start typing in that field, again, it grays it in stating son is what you're looking for. And if you hit tab or enter, it will populate it for you automatically. 12 months is how many months the dependent lived in the home of this taxpayer. But you'll notice this time, the only assumption that it made was the dependent code 1, that it was a dependent that lived with the taxpayer. The earned income credit and child tax credits didn't automatically populate. If we go to the EIC field, you'll notice down below the eligibility information. E equals eligible. S for student, D for disabled, K for kidnapped. Because they were a full-time student, this child can still qualify for earned income credit. The preparer just has to be able to put in the S in this field for student. The child tax credit didn't calculate, and that is because the child is over the age of 17, is not qualified for this credit. Also, dependent care. Just note is if this was a dependent that was disabled and maybe had paid dependent care for, the way you would have to input the dependent care for this is by putting a D in this field for disabled. The last section is for non-dependents being claimed for EIC purposes. This is maybe from a divorced couple and one spouse claims the dependent and the other spouse gets the earned income credit. That's what these last forms are for. The last section is non-dependents claimed for EIC. This could be a divorced couple and each year they rotate who claims the exemption and the other gets the EIC. With that, our client data is completed. If we scroll back through, you can see all the entries that has been completed on this form. Now, let's look at our attached forms list. We'll notice that we are well on our way of completing the tax return. We now have several forms that's added to our return. The 2441 has now loaded. Our child tax credit form has loaded, as well as our earned income credit list, checklist. Now let's talk about how to add more forms. To add forms, simply click on the Add Forms link or by clicking Control A on your keyboard. Once we hit Control A, you'll notice that it displays the All Forms and Schedules. By design, W-2 is automatically highlighted. This is because W-2s are the most added form to any tax return. If you need to search for a form and you know the form number, simply start typing. You'll notice that there is a schedule box down below. You do not have to click in it. It is automatically focused there. So for example, if I needed to get to form 8863, I can start typing 8863 and it'll take me to that form if you know that form number. Schedule A, I type A, it takes me to that form. If, however, you have newer preparers in your office and they're not quite sure what form to use, have them use the index form. This actually searches forms by descriptions. So for example, they have a customer comes in and that customer wants to report union dues. The newer preparer doesn't know where union dues go. All they have to do is come to the index tab, start typing union, and it'll tell them union dues and expenses goes to a Schedule A. Once they select this, not only will it load the Schedule A, but it'll actually open up the worksheet where this information needs to go. Now, let's go back and add a form to this tax return. To do so, I'm going to click Add Form, and let's add a W-2. We're going to select a new occurrence because I want to show you how quickly you complete a W-2 in this program. Once you're in the W-2, to complete it, we want to click on the Employer's Identification box. Once we're here, you'll notice that you have choices available. This is another database, so as you're entering in employer information, we'll remember it for the next time. Select the appropriate employer. Once you're in the W-2, you want to start on the Employer Identification Number field. You'll notice that there is a database associated to that by choices available to you in the active window. If it's an employer that you have input into the program before, we will remember that information and you can pick it from a pick list. Select the employer that you're wanting to add and it will automatically fill out the employer information. Again, this will help save you keystrokes, speeding up the preparation time of the tax return. Now you need to put in the wages. Again, this is a process of data entry. You're simply looking at the W-2 in hand and entering in the information from it. For this example, we're going to say they had $2,000 in wages. You'll notice that boxes 3, 4, 5, and 6 automatically calculate. Sometimes these fields are different from what's on the actual W-2. Before you go directly to the field to make a change, complete the W-2 first because information entered down below will automatically make changes for you. So I'm going to go ahead and put in $200 in federal tax withheld. And again, I'm looking at my W-2 and they have paid into a 401k. Box B is marked on 13. And then in box 12, it has a D for deferral and the amount in which they paid in, which we'll say is $150. Now watch boxes 3, 4, 5, and 6 on enter. Once I hit enter, those boxes automatically adjust to the correct information on the W-2. So once again, to complete the W-2, you'll want to enter in the employer identification number, and if it's in your database, it will automatically populate the employer information. If not, you'll enter in the identification number and the employer's name, address, and zip, and it will be entered into your database, so the next time you wouldn't have to enter it. Next, you want to complete the W-2 wages, the federal income tax withheld, and complete any other fields that's on the W-2 in hand. If there's state information, you will need to enter that as well. For this example, we're going to have Georgia, and we'll put in an employer ID number. Once we do so, you'll notice that it automatically brings the wages down from box 1 and places it in box 16. Lastly, you'll just put in the amount of state tax that was withheld. Now our W-2 is completed. Again, to add more forms, you can click on Add Form or Control A. So now we've completed our client data. We've added our income. Now what we want to do is finish with our schedule. Let's say they had a Schedule C. To select the Schedule C, you can click on it or type in C on the keyboard and enter, and it will load the Schedule C for you. Box A, it wants to know what type of business this is. Not the name of the business yet, just what type of business that they're in. For this example, we're going to say landscaping. Now you have to select the business code. The IRS has blessed you with a long book of codes to have to look through. You'll notice by clicking choices, it will give you a list of all the different descriptions and codes that you could select. Before you actually come to this screen, try going to the description field first. For example, this is a landscaping business. So if I start typing in landscaping, you'll notice that it grays it in. It says that we're talking about landscaping services. If you hit enter, it will fill that information in for you as well as the appropriate business code. This saves so much time when it comes to completing the tax return. Next is the business name. You would want to enter in the business name and, if applicable, the employer identification number. Now, you guys are the true tax professionals. I'm not going to go through and complete the entire form. I will, however, go through and show you some shortcut keys to completing this form. The next section I'll show you is under the income section. There's two different ways to enter in income on the Schedule C. One way is they bring you that shoebox of receipts that you are tallying up, and you can put in the total amount here on line 1. You can also hit Control W and go to an overflow detail statement where you can list out the individual amounts for them to total there in box 1. For this example, I'm just going to input $1,500 from gross sales or receipt. The next way income can come in to your Schedule C is maybe by a 1099. To get a 1099 to link to your Schedule C, you would want to have a Schedule C added to the tax return. Then you can link from line 2 or line 1 underneath gross receipt by clicking on the form links below. Select the appropriate 1099 you're adding. For this example, we're going to add the 1099 miscellaneous. Again, I'm not going to complete the whole form, but I want to show you box 7. This is a non-employee compensation. Let's say, for example, that this landscaper did landscaping for a business in town, and that business issued a 1099 for the work. So what you would do is come here to the non-employee section, put in the amount that's in that field. Below is where you're going to specify where you want this information to flow to. So once I click Link To box, you'll notice you have choices available. If I click Choices, I can then select where I want this income to flow to. Do I want it to go to my other income line on my 1040, or do I want to link it to my Schedule C? For this example, we want to link that $1,500 to the Schedule C. So I'll select the Schedule C by double clicking. And now, if I hit the Escape button, it'll take me back to my Schedule C, and you can see that the 1099 miscellaneous income has pulled in to the second box under income. Now, let's talk about expenses. To enter in expenses, you'll come to the expenses part. This is where you're going to come through and enter all expenses. Depreciation, however, we're going to come back and talk about in just a few minutes. But let's talk about mileage. If they want to have mileage claimed for a vehicle, and it's strictly mileage is the only thing that they have kept up with, you would want to put the mileage piece in section 4 of the Schedule C. Here is where you would enter it in the date that they placed the vehicle in service, their total business miles, commuting miles, and then answer the 4 questions below. I'm not going to complete this section because I want to show you how else you can enter in mileage. So for example, the taxpayers come to you and they've brought you the mileage information as well as a shoebox of receipts of actual expenses for the vehicle for the year. And they want you to take the best deduction for them, be it actual or mileage. You can actually input both of these into the program and let the program decide what is going to be the better deduction for the taxpayer. To do that, you want to access the depreciation. To get to depreciation, you would want to hit Control N on your keyboard. Once you hit Control N, it will take you into your depreciation tab. Now you'll notice that there's 2 options here. You have your vehicle information and you also have your Schedule C. For this example, we're going to select car truck. Once I select car truck, it takes us into the asset center for the vehicle. To add a new asset, I'll simply click on new asset. Once the new asset details pop up, you'll want to give the item the description name. So what is this? We're going to say that it is a Ford F-150. The date placed in service will calculate to the first day of the tax year. This field is something that you will need to ask the client when they place the vehicle in service. For this example, I'll leave it defaulted to the first day of the tax year. Below that, you have your business asset class code. You'll want to select the appropriate business asset class codes. Based on the vehicle, we'll select the light duty truck, van, SUVs under 6,000 pounds. Once we do that, it'll give us the convention as well as the years that it'll depreciate the asset. Once you select that, click on OK, and it'll take you into the asset class code. Here is where you would put in the amount that they paid for the asset. For this example, I'll say they gave $20,000 for the truck. On Enter, you'll notice that it will carry that information to the State tab. Below, you have questions you need to answer about the vehicle. Was the vehicle available for personal use? Yes. The vehicle used by more than a 5% owner? Yes. Is another vehicle available for personal use? Yes. Do you own this vehicle? Yes. The last 2 are force actual expenses, force standard mileage rate. If you want the program to decide which is going to be better for the client, you will want to say no to these 2 questions. Lastly, was acres or makers used in previous years? Because we placed this asset in service this tax season, that question's grayed out. Now you'll want to go to your mileage and expenses tab. Here is where you're going to put in the information for the mileage and the actual expenses. So up top, I'll put in 10,000 miles was the total miles put on the vehicle this year. Below that, you have your commuting miles. Commuting miles deducts what you have available to you. So for this example, we're going to say 2,000 of those miles were commuting. So we actually have 8,000 miles to play with. Below here is the list of the schedules. Now, if you had multiple schedules, you could actually appropriately allocate the miles to each schedule. For this example, we're just going to say that they drove the vehicle 7,000 miles for the landscaping company. Now, we have 1,000 miles left over. That's not a problem because if you remember back on the General tab, we actually stated that the vehicle was available for personal use. So those other 1,000 miles could be the personal miles that we put on the vehicle. Below is the actual expenses. This is going to be that shoebox that they've brought to you on paying for gas for their vehicle, any repairs, any tolls they've paid, interest, and or taxes. You'll just simply total up those figures and put them into the appropriate fields. Once you've entered in all the actual expenses, you have the last two questions. Do you have evidence to support this deduction? And if yes, is the evidence written? You'll answer those two questions, and now we can click close. Once we click close, it's going to take you to the special depreciation allowance. During certain time frames like 2008 through 2015, and then again from 2011 through 2016, the IRS allowed for the special depreciation, which basically allowed the taxpayer to take more of the depreciation the first year versus spreading it across all the years. For this example, we want to opt out of it. To opt out of the special depreciation, you simply place a check mark in the field underneath. If you wish to elect out of the special depreciation, please check the box to the right. Once I put that in, I'm going to click on OK and return to list. Now, once I return to list and close, I want you to watch the forms list because it's going to automatically build my 4562 as well as a car and truck form. So if you wanted to see what the program took, actual expenses or mileage, you would want to go to your car truck form. And as you can see here in this example, it's got the business mileage and the actual expenses. It gives you the general information. And if we look down below that, it actually looks at the actual expenses. And we can tell by this example that the greater profit for the customer is going to be mileage. So it's actually taken the mileage instead of the actual. So if we look here, the actual does not have the X in it. That lets us know too that it did not take actual, that it's taking the mileage. The actual expenses was only $2,772, where the deduction they're going to get for the mileage is the $4,025. So now if we go back to our Schedule C, you'll see here in section expenses, line 9, that the vehicle information has automatically pulled in. So that's how you would let the program take the better of the two, actual or mileage, for your client. Now let's add a regular asset. We've talked about the vehicles and how you add a vehicle through depreciation, but what about the computer the customer bought to schedule their appointments? They need to depreciate that asset as well. So to access the depreciation module again, we'll want to hit Control N. This time we want to select the schedule. We'll select our Schedule C. Once we're in the Schedule C, it takes us into the business activity asset. Here is where we would build our asset list for any assets purchased for our Schedule C. For this example, we're going to create a new asset for a computer. So to add that asset, I simply click on New Asset. In the description, I'll put what it is. Again, you would put the date placed in service, the correct date, and then you'll select from the class codes the correct code. For this example, it's going to fall underneath computers or peripheral equipment. Once I select that and click on OK, it takes us into the asset class. Here is where you would give the amount they paid for the computer. It will carry to the State tab on Enter. And once we select Close, again, it shows us the special depreciation. Again, I want to opt out. So I'll put the check mark in the opt-out box and click on OK. And we have just depreciated our first regular asset for our Schedule C. If you needed to continue adding, you simply click on New Asset and you would build your assets for this schedule. Again, when I return to List and I close, you can now see that our depreciation for our laptop has come back in to box 13 on our Schedule C. Depreciation can be complicated, but with the use of this program, anybody should be able to depreciate an asset. The only thing they need to know is how much it was, when they placed it in service, and what is it. If they have those three pieces of information, the program will do the rest. Now that we have completed the depreciation, let's look back at our progress. When we started the tax return, we completed the client data sheet. Then we completed our W-2s, our income. From that, we completed our schedules. Then we depreciated our assets. Now we want to specify how we're going to file this tax return. The way you tell the program how you want to file the return is by going to the 8879. On the 8879, the refund type is going to give you the options of how the taxpayer is going to get their money. Is it going to be from a check from the IRS, a direct deposit from the IRS? Do they have a balance due? Or are they going to be doing a bank product? To mark this as a bank product, you're going to select option 5. So from the refund type, you would simply type in a 5, and that is going to prompt it to load a bank product. Now again, it didn't automatically load the bank app on Enter. But when I refresh my return, my bank application will then load. You'll need to complete the bank app. Go through and complete each section required to complete for the bank to be able to process the refund. Under the account information, if they want a direct deposit of their bank product and you've entered that information on the client data, all you have to do is mark it as a direct deposit. Then it's going to bring up your product options. And if you had put it on your client data, you will simply mark client pass-through account information. Once you do so and you hit enter, it will automatically pull in the account information for you. Now that we've completed all forms, the next step is to start the verification process. This is going to check to make sure that everything is entered in the tax return that is required to electronically file the tax return. To do this, you would simply click on Verify. Now, if there's problems with the return, this box will populate. And as you can see, it says there's some issues. This is what we call our point and shoot error correction. This is the part where I even tell our mouse people, take your hand off the mouse and utilize your keyboard to complete these errors. You can quickly go through and complete the errors simply by using the enter key. So once you hit enter, it will take you to the field that's causing the problem. You'll answer that field, hit enter, and it'll take you through the rest. Now, I wanted to show you the 8867, which is the EIC due diligence, to make sure that you're answering the questions that's required. Once you hit enter on the first 8867 question, it'll take you to the first required field that you must answer. You'll answer the field, read it and answer it appropriately, hit enter, and you'll notice how you can quickly go through and correct any errors in your tax return. Again, simply hitting enter, answer, enter, enter, answer, enter, answer. So as you're answering these, you'll notice that the others are going away. Once we complete our errors, you'll notice that it's said no errors found. We'll close out, and if you want to re-verify, once the return verifies successfully, this will be the box that'll populate. Return verified successfully. Let's go ahead and click on OK here. There's a few other buttons that I want to talk about before we move on to wrapping up the return. If you'll notice up the top, there's a button called Notes. Notes is a field that you can use to note something about the tax return. For example, if we wanted to add a note for this tax return that the customer had a bank product that didn't fund the previous year and that they owe the prep fees from last year of $150. Once we click on Save here, that note will now be saved in the tax return. And anytime you open up this tax return, the first thing that will populate in front of you is the Prepare Note. The good thing about the Prepare Notes is they carry forward from year to year. So if the customer comes back to you next year and you start their return, the first thing that you're going to see is that customer still owes for prep fees from last year. So notes are good in that aspect. Remember, they will carry forward from year to year. The other button that I would like to show you is the Quick button. The Quick button allows you to query a tax return without having to leave the tax return you're working on. So for example, the phone rings, it's a client who wants to know the status of their tax return. Instead of having to close out the client's return you're working in, you simply click on the Quick button, specify what you're going to query for. For this one, we're going to say we're looking for the Social Security number, so we'll say 411-00-8000 and click Search. Once we click Search, I want you to notice that it's connecting to Central Site. It's going to bring you back the most up-to-date information for this tax return based on what Central Site has. It'll show you the information for the tax, the IRS side of things, as well as the bank application. Simply click Close when you're ready to close out of the screen. So, we completed client data. We've added all forms. We completed our schedules. We depreciated our assets. We specified how we want to file the return. We completed our bank application, and we verified our tax return. The next step would be to capture signatures, right? Either printing out the forms and manually signing, or utilizing the information and technology that we use with our software and utilize the signature pad. If you're using the signature pads, you can capture these signatures electronically. To capture signatures for the tax return itself, you'll want to go up and click on the print icon. This simply states that they're printing the final version of this tax return. To capture signatures, you want to click on the print icon, which basically states you're printing the final tax return. Once that dialog box populates, to capture the signatures in-house, you'll want to click Sign Document. Once you click on Sign Document, it's going to bring up boxes for Protection Plus if you've added it, and lets them know that they're acknowledging that they've read and received the agreement. Once you click on OK, it'll then open up the Capture the Taxpayer signature box. You'll give the signature pad to your client and they'll sign their tax return. Once they complete the signature, you'll click on Accept. With that click of a button, what's going to happen is it's going to bring up on screen a copy of the PDF of the tax return. And if we scroll through here, you'll notice that the program automatically puts the signatures on the appropriate forms. You don't have to drag and drop anything. The program knows what forms need what signatures. And you'll notice the preparer or the ERO sign then, because in the setup of the program, they sign one time. Then the program knows whose signatures to pull in for what returns. Once you're ready to close out of the PDF, you simply click on the X. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you when it comes to capturing signatures. You can also capture signatures for somebody who's not in the office. To do that, you'll simply click on the print icon again. And this time, you'll want to click Remote Sign. This will prompt the program to send a text message to the taxpayer. The taxpayer will open up the text message. Inside, it will provide them with a link. This link will take them to mytaxofficeportal.com. They'll need to click on OK. Once they do so, it will take them to the page and require additional information. On this page, they'll need to type in their last name. Once they complete typing in their last name, they'll want to enter their date of birth. Lastly, they'll want to input the last 4 digits of the Social Security number. Then click Next. It's going to require them to turn their device sideways. They can click on OK and turn it sideways. This will allow them to be able to sign their tax return. They'll need to click on I've read the document, place a check mark beside that. Once they do so, then they can use their finger to sign electronically. Once complete, simply click Submit. Lastly, it will ask if they're satisfied with the captured signature. If so, simply click Yes, and they are complete. Once the signature request has been sent to the taxpayer, to check the status of the signature from within the tax return, you would click on Remote Signature underneath General Forms, and it will show you the status that we're still waiting on the taxpayer signature to come through. Now, we want to start completing the tax return now. We've gotten everything done. Let's wrap it up and let's talk about the documents that you need to keep a copy of. Taxpayers come in with their W-2s, with driver's license, Social Security cards, dates of birth for dependents, birth certificates, anything that you need to keep a copy of. Before, you would have to make a paper copy and file it away in a filing cabinet. But with the new technology available to you, you can actually use that same scanner you started the tax return with to capture those images and store them electronically in the tax return. To store these documents electronically in the tax return, we'll want to go to the document archive. In the document archive, you'll see there's our fully signed tax return that our client signed, and also the tax return showing that we're waiting on a remote signature for it as well. So those files are stored here as well. But to scan in new documents, you'll simply click on Scan Document. Once you select Scan Document, you can put the document underneath your scanner, click on Snap. With the click of a button, it will capture the images of the documents that you're needing to keep a copy of. Once you have these captured, you can even specify what it is that you're capturing. Was it identification? Was it an income source? W-2s? What was it? This was identification, And we'll say that it's the taxpayer's driver's license. And once we click save, it will now save that file into our tax return. So you can do this for any documents that you need to keep a copy of. Now, if for some reason you're not utilizing the scanner, the handheld scanner that we work with, and you have just a regular traditional scanner, you can still import those documents in. There's just an extra step. So what you would do is take the documents that you're wanting to keep a copy of, take them to your scanner, scan them into your computer somewhere, then from inside the program, come back to the document archive, select import document instead of the scan document, and then you simply navigate to the location where you have the document stored. Select the document you want to import, click open, and then you can again give it a description. What is it? Identification, again, a driver's license. Click on OK, and it will then import that document into the tax return document archive section as well. So now we've captured the signatures. We have stored all of our documents electronically inside the tax return. Lastly, we want to actually create the electronic file. To do that, we'll simply click on Queue. Once we click on Queue, it'll show you exactly what transmittal files it's creating. For this one, it's creating a federal file to be sent to the IRS and a state file to be sent to the state. When you're ready to queue it, you simply click Queue. Now on Queue, it's going to let you know that it's taken you out of the return and it's now in the status of return queued. We can see that by looking here at our screen, and the status says return queued. So it hasn't sent anywhere yet. It's a two-step process when it comes to electronically filing. To actually send the return now, you'll want to go back to your work in progress screen. You can click on the WIP button at the top or click F2. Now, I said we would start on this screen and end on this screen. So to send your tax return now, you'll click on Transmit to Central Site. Once you're here in the Transmit to Central Site, it'll show you the files that are being sent. You're going to have some summary records, version reports, things like this. If you want to see a list of the tax returns that are scheduled to be sent, you can click the filter button here and it will show you a list of the tax returns that are going to be sent. If for some reason you wanted that tax return to not send at this particular point in time, you can remove the check mark and that tax return will not be sent in this communication session. But we do want to go ahead and send off the tax return. So once I click on OK, to send it, I'll simply click on Transmit. You'll notice that it's transmitting into Central Site now, and the tax return has now been electronically filed. Once the tax return is sent, you'll see communication successful. So you can click on OK and close out. Now we have completed the tax return. We have sent it electronically. Now we'll wait to get acknowledgement back from the IRS and state. Thank you for attending the 1040 walkthrough class.